for you to accept. And welcome to this membership call. We're looking forward to a check-in with yourselves and to sharing some of the ongoing initiatives in the different corners of our world. I'm not sure if that beeping is people joining the call or if it's an additional. Okay, I get an affirmative. Thank you. Well, that's good. Each beep is an additional person, and that's most welcome. So for today, we have quite a packed agenda. We're going to be doing a check-in at several levels, looking at sort of what's happening in future generations in the multilateral space, and then having some check-ins from a regional lens, particularly looking at some inputs from Nicholas, who's on the call from the Copenhagen Institute of Future Studies. Then we'll also hear from the European Commission with Erica. And hopefully Alimi is also going to join us and share a bit of his initiatives from the Delta region. Then we'll get some updates from the Secretariat and looking forward to that. And then we'll wrap up with a few additional comments or inputs from yourselves if you want to add to the agenda and share some of what's happening in your world. So to get us started, I'm going to hand over to Jack just to set the context and remind us of why we're all here and what we're doing and what we're working towards. So Jack, please take us away.
Thank you. Now we're about to attempt to do our next technical step. Bear with me as I attempt to share my screen. A thumbs up will suffice as to, yeah, and there's a nod. So Erica, you can see it. Good stuff, good stuff. Well, Prynhawn da, good afternoon, or good morning, or bore da, whatever you are in the world. So good to see so many familiar faces, but new faces to the ImPACT Coalition membership call. So I'm going to do a few things before we hear from our guest today, which is to give a bit of an overview as to the journey so far of the ImPACT Coalition, who we are and what is the purpose of the ImPACT Coalition, what is it that we do, and more importantly, how you can all get involved. And there'll be an opportunity towards the end of today's call to ask questions, to ask for clarification, to share your experiences and the events or the activities that you're involved in as it pertains to future generations. My name's Jack. I'm one of the co-leads of the ImPACT Coalition, and I'm based in Wales in the office of the Future Generations Commissioner for Wales. Been in the office for about 7 years now, which is a commissioner term, as I keep reminding myself. But it's really exciting that I get to be part of this community of global experts on future generations or those advocating in this space. So the journey so far has been quite exciting. So the ImPACT coalitions have formed across the world on various themes and subjects. So this is the ImPACT coalition dedicated to future generations, and there'll be others on the call who sit in as members of other coalitions, and we can certainly find the link to the other ImPACT coalitions where you'll be able to learn more about the activity and the work programs of the ImPACT Coalition. So I'll pop that into the chat later on. The journey started just over a year ago in Wales, where we hosted the Future Generations Forum, bringing together over 60 countries. There were member state representations who joined us online. And it was an opportunity for us ahead of the Declaration on Future Generations, or the Summit of the Future, which took place last September, an opportunity for us to come together from across the world, different demographics, different ages, different sectors, to help inform the content of the Declaration. So it was really exciting to bring various partners to Wales. And again, I'm pleased to see so many on the screen that joined us here in Cardiff. That took place in the April of last year, and then we convened again then in Nairobi at the Civil Society conference, where formally the various ImPACT coalitions were launched, and that's the second picture there on on the screen. I can see David Wilcombe to my left in the picture, and I know he's on the call there with us as well. And there's many other faces still connected and part of this coalition. So the ImPACT Coalition has hosted various webinars and town halls to crowdsource ideas about what this ImPACT Coalition is and what it stands for and what its aims are. And I'm grateful for all the inputs and feedback that we've had to date in continuing to establish the purpose of the ImPACT Coalition. We've also then, as various members, participated in UN briefings. We've provided inputs from civil society experts, young people, during consultations about the Future Generations Envoy. We can talk about that later as well. And as you will see from the many people on the screen in the call today, the momentum has continued to grow. We're a membership now of over 500, which is great from all across the world, and I'll talk a bit about that later too. And I'm pleased that local initiatives have started, and we'll hear from Nicholas later as well. This organic momentum that is growing on a local level, on a national level in the case of Denmark, and that's exciting. That's about understanding the connections between grassroots on the ground activity all the way through to the multilateral space as well. So our journey has been over a year in the making, and I still think it's fair that we are still growing. We're still understanding the landscape as well. So who are we? Well, in a nutshell, we're a global civil society platform uniting diverse stakeholders, including our youth networks, the NGOs, academia, cities, and private sector to advocate, monitor, and catalyze action on intergenerational governance and the Declaration's commitments. We did at the last check-in put a spotlight on what the Declaration said. We did a bit of a refresher on the Declaration, and Dawia took us through the actions of the Declaration. So it's really important that the ImPACT Coalition continues to drive local, national, and multilateral actions and commitments towards achieving what we set out in that declaration. And we can signpost you to the declaration if you want to find out more information. What is it that we do then? So we've landed as a result of the feedback that we received from members on these four core purposes for the coalition. So that we act as a global network of champions, maintaining a broad alliance of actors committed to future generations, and enabling peer learning. Really important that we share. Oh, I'm getting a little bit of feedback, so I don't know if we can identify the microphone issue there. Perfect, thank you. So sharing amongst partners, showcasing pioneering models. There are many that have been established for decades, others that are new to this space, and we're continuing to evolve and learn from partners on what needs to be done. Coordinating then collective advocacy efforts to amplify impact and the envoy's messages, uniting actors in joint campaigns with shared calls to action, and coordinating outreach to influence public decision making. So that's the third pillar. And then fourthly, with an ambition to host an annual Future Generations Forum. I mentioned the Welsh Future Generations Forum that we held in April of last year, and really finding an annual home for us to come together as experts and advocates in this space, so that we are driving the activity following from the declaration. And many of the subjects in the Pact for the Future, which was completed and voted on last and adopted by member states last September. Many of the themes in that pact have a natural home in the UN calendar. Alas, the Future Generations theme doesn't yet have a natural home. So hoping that the ImPACT Coalition can provide that space for dialogue, accountability, idea generation, and coming together as a movement. So that's it on terms of who we are, what we've been through over the last year, and again later on we'll have the opportunity to delve into some questions and some clarification on that. But I'll hand back to Jerry for now. Thanks.
Thanks, Jack, for giving us that overview and just checking us in. For those that are already quite familiar with the work this coalition is aiming to do, it's a refresher. And if you're fairly new to the space, we found it would be helpful just to reiterate the glue that's keeping us on this call, that's keeping us connecting on these membership calls. So I did introduce myself in the chat, but just to mention, my name is Njeri. I'm calling in from Cape Town. I work with the South African Institute of International Affairs. And yeah, I welcome you to similarly introduce yourself as well, just so we get a sense and also use this opportunity to connect with those online. And also to mention that we will have an opportunity towards the end of the agenda and open up for comments from yourselves. So there'll be a chance to interact more openly across the group. So let's get into our first future generations check-in, starting at the multilateral level. And I'm happy to welcome Nishan to share a little bit around what's happening from the World Futures Council and in terms of your activities. Just checking if Nishan is online. I know that there is an ongoing convening happening in Hamburg, the sustainability conference. Yes. Hi, Alan. Okay, so when Nishan and others are able to join, we will definitely allow for some space. Alan, were you hoping to speak on behalf? No? Just checking.
If Lucian doesn't arrive, I can fill in. So just let me know. I think you're waiting a little bit longer. He was hoping to patch in at some stage, but he is dashing between meetings here in Hamburg.
Fully understand. Okay, let's see if Nishan is able to join, and if not, we will have you on standby. Thank you, Alan, for that. So let's then come back to our next contributor, Daya. I see you're online. I know you said you're on a train, but if yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone. I'm hoping that you can hear me well. Can you?
We can hear you well. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. I'm hoping that it will not cut off. So that's excellent. That's an excellent transition, actually, because Nishan participated yesterday to our high-level panel on future generations. This panel discussion featured, so during this panel discussion, we brought two scenarios of 2100. So a group of young people came on stage and delivered two visions of the future, one that is desirable and one that that is business as usual. And the panelists, who were Guy Ryder, Marathon of Experience, Sophie Howe, and Nishan, were supposed to answer from a guardianship perspective on what they were achieving right now, so that one of the scenario would happen, the desirable scenario happens, and to prevent the less desirable scenario to happen. It was an excellent way to bring in also other experts. So Sitra from Finland, a representative from philanthropy, and as well Senator Christopher Tige from Kenya, who is one of the leads of the Future Caucus in the Senate. It was an excellent interactive session, which I feel can be duplicated. So Jack, if we're contemplating doing a Future Generations Forum from the bottom of my heart, let's do it. We know that it was in discussion during the Summit of the Future. It was supposed to land at the final, in the final declaration on future generations. Unfortunately, it didn't. But if we can bring all of our capacities, expertise, and knowledge to decision makers through our vibrant community, let's just do it. And I'm very happy to support. On more broader updates, and less, let's say, more strategic perspective, I think that we are in a moment of turmoil within the UN. And after a discussion with Guy Ryder yesterday, it appears that the Special Envoy for Future Generations budget might not be confirmed for 2025 budget, but might be pushed back until 2026. Which which is unfortunate, but doesn't mean that our strategy doesn't is still invalid. I think that our coalition was born in the hope that we could be a focal point and an anchor for the special envoy. But I think that there are other structures emerging, such as our ImPACT coalition that is already doing their great work, and also a group of friends on future generations in New York that we could also support. So thanks for providing a spot for providing updates. I'm sorry for the and I'm hoping that we can all discuss together sort of collaborating in the near future.
Thank you. Thanks for that update. We were able to hear you quite well, and great to hear about the continuing activities and also the sort of broadening field. And yeah, there are different platforms and structures through which we can continue with this agenda. And I think we continue to be flexible as the different conversations emerge on how to best situate the different roles and profiles, etc. So thanks for that. Alan, I see you have your hand up. Would you like to go ahead on behalf of Nishan?
Well, I'll just follow on a little in what Daria was saying, because it's very similar to what Nishan would have said. And thanks so much, Daria. But I think the discussion from Guy Ryder was actually really important, both the discussion in the panel and then informal discussion. Things are difficult for the progress for the envoy for future generations. There are countries that don't want it, and they're using blocking to put go slow, if not stop on it. It's very useful, Guy was saying, to demonstrate that there's a lot of support for this envoy from civil society, and also from the group of friends for future generations. So whatever we can do to encourage the like-minded countries, the group of friends of future generations, to keep talking up the envoy, but also from civil society, not just talking up the envoy, but talking up the whole idea of the institutional representatives of future generations. So the fact that there are already initiatives for establishing representatives at different places, like in the Delta region, Nigeria, and Oman, etc. This is all really helpful. And the more that there can be civil society taking it on, inspired by the Declaration of Future Generations, to set up representatives of future generations at local body level or at national level, supporting the EU new position, for example, all this will help to build support behind the Friends of Future Generations and the UN envoy to take this forward.
Thanks for adding a bit more detail. And just for those who might not be aware, could you share a bit more about who the group of friends is and what we mean when we talk about the group of friends?
Daria knows better than me on that.
And I'm also happy to invite Jack to the call. But Daria, please go ahead if you can share.
Perhaps Harshani, I don't know if she's in the call, can speak even better of this. I can only share because they do have direct relationships in New York. But from what I can tell, the group of friends on future generations was created just in the aftermath of the Summit of the Future. The idea was for the co-facilitators, so Jamaica and the Netherlands, to continue building momentum in New York, the diplomatic momentum in New York on the topic of long-term governance. It appears that they had two meetings, initial meetings, scoping meetings, at least, to figure out how they want to work together and what are their policy priorities. And for more, I would say, up-to-date and detailed information, sorry for putting you on the spot, Harshani, but perhaps you could update us as well.
No, happy to. So the ImPACT Coalition actually has a direct communication with both USG's team as well as the group of friends. A lot of that collaboration, we're not going to touch on USG, but we'll touch on the group of friends. The group of friends concept was launched at a side event that we supported at the Summit of the Future with the Netherlands and Jamaica. And they've had one lunch early this year, and they hope to meet sometime at the end of June or early July. They would like to make a formal launch of the group of friends to really help the political momentum and interest, not just in the UN, but also in regional platforms in the EU and the African Union. And the other interest of theirs is to ensure that there's support, capacity building support, and technical support for in-country implementation of the declaration. So a lot of that effort now is slowly moving, but the interest is strong. There's a core group within the group of friends that have somewhat of a rotating function, but have consistent engagement. And there are periphery members that come in and come out. They're still in the stage of trying to finalize some of those arrangements, and that's kind of been why it's taken a little bit of time. And also our world has been upended multiple ways, sideways, left and right. So it's been a bit slower than they like, but they're starting to build traction. And the Hamburg Sustainability Conference is a good moment for that. So we hope in the next ImPACT Coalition meeting that there will actually be a representative from the group of friends, either that's the Netherlands or Jamaica, to just give a bit of a readout on progress. And some of our members are providing some support in their coordination, but we'll try to ensure that there's a lot of synergy between the ImPACT Coalition and the group of friends. But I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. Very helpful. And Daria, thank you as well. Very helpful with your comments. Alan, go ahead.
Yeah, seeing Nishan hasn't come on, I'll add one more comment, which I know Nishan would have led on, and that is, as well as highlighting the practical value of institutional representatives of future generations, including the UN envoy, what's also been pointed out as being helpful is to give practical examples of future generations' policies, like policies protecting future generations, to demonstrate that they are not in competition with policies protecting current generations. So seeing those connections between protecting current and future generations. So, this is demonstrated really well, for example, by the Wales Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, which in its implementation is looking at well-being now and the future. And you see it in all the reports, and Jack can talk more about that. What Nishan now is the CEO of the World Future Council, and I'm the member of that. And what we've been doing in the World Future Council is actually giving awards to best policies protecting future generations on some of the different issues. So last year it was peace and future generations, and I've just put that in the chat. And that highlights policies that actually demonstrates again that these are good policies that are helping not just the future, but also the present. So it's not a competition. That will help break down some of this resistance and fear that, if you're thinking about the future, then you're putting detriment on the current generations. So that's another thing that we're taking forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Alan. And thanks for those tips as well on how we can continue to advocate, which is part of the key roles of this membership grouping. And great idea to have those awards to sort of motivate action and also celebrate achievements and people that are making a difference in the field. Let's move on then to hear a bit more on what's happening from the multilateral space into the regional contexts. And let me invite Nicholas to share from your work. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Give me a second and I'll pull up my slides here. All right, so I am Nicholas and I am from the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies, where I am recently ascended to the title as head of ImPACT and UNESCO co-chair in Futures Capabilities, meaning that I run the parts of our portfolio that has to do with democratization and integration of futures capabilities across arts, culture, education, philanthropy, and policy. And it's in particular the last topic that I'll focus on, as I'll present a little bit about our work and organization and outlooks for the Danish Coalition for Future Generations that was formed prior to the Summit of the Future amongst Danish civil society organizations and interest organizations. And we have slowly grown and organized up until today, and are having some quite interesting months ahead of us. You all know this, but we are using this slide or this notion to rally the conversation locally, particularly focusing on the Declaration on Future Generations, with the emphasis on policymaking and governance. Especially because here we have the Danish PM, Mette Frederiksen, accepting the pact, talking to the importance of its implementation and the ambitions within it. This was interesting because we saw nothing of this in local politics or local coverage. A lot of the attention to the UN from a Danish perspective were directed towards the Security Council, where we have a temporary seat the next 2 years, which kind of make the pact go under the radar. So if we measure ourselves against our peers, we can see this graph made by Vela, the Wellbeing Economy Lab, that are positioning Denmark in the absolute opposite corner of Wales, which could be positioned as the pioneering example of active use, including active use of well-being frameworks, including prioritization of future generations, as well as on the other axis, institutions safeguarding future generations' interests. Denmark is in the absolute opposite corner. The only official measure for progress in Denmark remains GDP, and we have no political functions taking future generations' interests. So there's a discrepancy between the PM's notions on the chair at the General Assembly Hall and what we see here when we are measuring the facts. On the right, you see a row of a list of statistics. I won't go through all of them, but the bolded one at the bottom, where we took the temperature literally with our futures barometer on Danes' attitudes towards the future, generally speaking and politically speaking, with a majority of Danes agreeing that they would prefer to have the future represented in politics, as for instance, we see it in Wales. So we're using these notions and these pieces of information to kickstart the local discourse and craft a narrative of the potential, and are starting to mobilize actors across. This has turned out to be Fremtidskoalitionen, which is the Danish translation of the Futures Coalition. We are the institute that I'm representing as the initiating organization, and with us we have the Wellbeing Economy Lab, the Academy for Social Innovation, and the Global Focus, which is an umbrella organization for CSOs that work internationally. We have set a vision and a mission that lifts and activates the declaration, and I will focus on the 3 key elements, which is binding legislation, independent enforcement, and ethical representation. So what we are doing is trying to mobilize and provoke an ambitious response. We have a theory of change that I won't bring in, but it's built on 4 different tracks of activity. The first one being that we need to generate knowledge about what this type of work means in a Danish and Nordic context. The second track is about engagement, very much building a local and national dialogue. Third is political influence, and fourth is also why we're here in terms of international inspiration. The way we're organized is that we have a steering committee that currently for the next 1.5 years will be the 4 founding organizations, but then we will open up for rotational seats. Around that, there's a secretariat that will take care of meetings, agendas, follow-up, hosting, and so forth. But the broader circle, which currently is expanding, is our members that we are rallying and recruiting. Not all members can sign on to this political and also in the eyes of some progressive agenda, and hence we have the function of supporting members. Now, this is interesting because on the right side, you see that we have both. We're seeing the contours of a funders collaborative and a political committee happening around this movement. Now, philanthropic foundations in Denmark, particularly those focused on systems change, are very interested in this agenda on future generations and see it as a newfound opportunity for them to actually use their potential muscles and risk-willing capital to think and act long-term under this umbrella. Now, we also, in order to get traction and actually get closer to any sort of political influence, we also acknowledge the fact that we need a political committee that are in line and attuned to what's happening within the members group. Now, the way we organize the discourse and activities locally is by being a part of a global movement. So we're tapping into the different networks, movements, and coalitions like this one, of course, to bring in information and validation to the agenda at a local level. But what we're also seeing in return is that other nations and networks are increasingly contacting and looking to the template that we are forming with a cross-sectorial philanthropy supported template or a blueprint for how to organize local coalitions. And we're very happy to see that in alignment with the well-being economics movement, and we're happy to engage further if there's any interest in organizing or mobilizing locally. Here's an example of our launch. I just have 2 more seconds, if that's okay. Yeah, here's a launch picture from the UN city in Copenhagen, where we had the guest of honor of Sophie Howe. And it's the first meeting that we had with the national CSO on where we really saw the need or identified the need for translating the documents out of the UN into a local context, which is an ongoing work currently. We are looking forward to partake in the People's Democracy Festival that's happening next week, where we have a whole series of events to charge the local conversation. And finally, but not least, we're looking forward to December, where we will celebrate the first year of the pact, and we hopefully will be able to launch our initiative politically at the Parliament.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that comprehensive presentation. And Jack has put a comment in the chat, which I fully agree with. It's a wonderful template. And I think a great way for others to start thinking around how they can mobilize locally while being connected to the global conversations and also including multiple stakeholders. So thanks a lot, Nicholas. And I'm sure you all received the call out to connect, to support. Let's please pay attention to this initiative, and we look forward to further updates as we continue with these check-in with members. And next we have Erica. Erica, the floor is yours to share a bit on the work that you are doing on future generations.
Thank you. My name is Erica, and I'm part of the EU Policy Lab, which is located at the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. And we are hosting the process and the design of the Intergenerational Fairness Strategy for Commissioner McAuliffe, who is appointed to design this strategy. And this is super nice and also very exciting and interesting and difficult all at the same time, because we see so many great examples popping up, which we'd like to introduce, but also we struggle or we have to find ways of how to do this in the political realm. So we are trying, as we are located in the EU Policy Lab, which is about innovative policy making, to do this a bit different than the standard way that the Commission usually works. And that's interesting and also exciting and challenging, and which means that we try to co-create this strategy much more than do it as a standalone by ourselves, especially since it doesn't relate to one policy, but it of course relates to all the work that the European Commission is doing. And Therefore, it doesn't match one particular DG, as we call them, the ministries, but it is overarching, and that means we need to get our colleagues from all the different DGs on board. Next to working with bringing science at the front and also long-term thinking, forward-looking as part of the discussion. So to not only design a strategy that works for the coming few years, but really taking this as an opportunity to bring this long-term thinking and the commitments made in the UN summit to an ambitious level in the Commission. And this means we have a year process, which follows a few steps, which is the scoping that we finished. Now we're into the vision building, and then we'll follow on the strategy ideas and then strategy co-creation. And with the vision building, this is not standard in the Commission, but for most of you here, it's obvious because it's about long-term thinking. But we tend to make strategies that are very relevant, but always when there's changes in society and there's emerging issues, we have to adjust and address, and it's not completely clear what our vision was and what we try to achieve and what the values behind it are. So we're really trying to bring these like vision snapshots forward, as this is the preferable future that we see, because then it's easier to add strategies and actions to those visions than a strategy as standalone. And we're very grateful that we are doing this in co-creation, also in a coalition setup. And some of you are joining us, which we're grateful for. This means those topics that we defined from the scoping, we are discussing from this vision element, vision building element. And not only we do this in these coalitions where there's people from the different DGs, the Joint Research Center, the researchers, but also our external experts and inspirators and creatives. So it's a diverse group and minds, and we believe that because of the diversity, we come to great ideas and insights than if we only have it in the Commission with the very more economical, political way that we tend to look at it. And this is a bit of a challenge. Some of you who are joining might have experienced, because this is not the standard way. So we, even technically, we don't get people into the system because of the barriers. But we are very excited because not only this works for the Intergenerational Fairness Strategy, it's also a request because our Ursula von der Leyen, President, is trying to cut the silos, bring the silos together, because it's very much working within the DGs. And this is also for us a way to understand how we can bring the DGs together, not in a silo. And that means that we are getting some resistance and some very excited people there, which is a challenge, but it is also a format that we're trying that might even follow for future explorations that are more overarching, as the Commission is really trying to support that angle. And so after the visioning, we will go into strategy ideas, so dive a bit more into what does this mean for political thinking, also adding a bit more of a definition, because we left it open because we wanted to understand what the thinking is behind it before we put it in words. And also we want to kind of leave it open in a way, because we don't think it is about a clear definition. It's about the ambitions that are behind it that we want to work on together. And after that, we will have citizens panels, meaning that we will bring citizens from all over Europe together to discuss these ideas. First on the visioning perspective, then on the strategy, but also how we better implement this. So that's a super nice opportunity, because this is also only a few years that we started working on really bringing citizens in the discussion. And that said, also we have a citizens platform where people are invited to join. Each session we adjust the platform, so there's not just one question, which is standard for the Commission within the Have Your Say. There is either one question or there is The results you can feedback on, and now we are taking it per session, so per phase, let's say, also to make the connections. And lots more going on, but also it's work for that we're trying to develop in a new way in the Commission, but we hopefully what we would like, because also forming the coalitions, that we do this together, and we learned so much from all of your work and all the ImPACT Coalition has done, and so we would be grateful if you would join us. We have a session prepared for the 11th of July, where the work of the coalitions they are now in place, working in a pressure cooker for 5 weeks, where we would share that work with you, also to understand from all your perspectives and dimensions what you think and what it means. And also especially in the international context, because we know that we're sometimes biased also from looking from Europe, and therefore not only we are looking into this as the Joint Research Center, but we're working also closely together with our DG INPA, which is the international, our DG that works at the international level. And so we would be grateful if you'd like to join on the 11th of July, and we'll share the link and the invite with you later. And I'm happy in whichever way we can support you, just to final end, because we, for instance, really love what Nicholas and what they're doing in Denmark, and there are presidencies, and the next one is in Denmark, so we're trying to make these connections to support also from our side. So if there's any way that you can use our support in a way, then we definitely want to try, because we think we do this together, and it's not separate, but this whole impact,
yes,
because of all of us.
Thank you, Erica, and thank you for reiterating and emphasizing the collaborative, co-creative component of the work that we do. Thanks also for taking on the political front and addressing some of those challenges and pushback there. I'm sure there's a lot of lessons that we'll be able to learn from your engagement, including the involvement of citizens and having that intersection there as well. Boyan has shared the information in the link, and I'm sure if anybody would like more information, they can reach out to you, Erica, or through this ImPACT Coalition, be able to follow up on those activities if they wish to be involved. Alimi, speaking around getting a better sense of what's happening in the global context. There's some feedback, but please go ahead with your feedback from the Delta region.
All right. Thank you, Nderi. Hi, everyone. My name is Alimi Salifu from Lagos, and I'll be speaking from Nigeria, as to what's happening in Nigeria. And for your information, Nigeria has started the dialogue on future generations and long-term governance. And as a result, we had a dialogue in Delta State, and today we also had a webinar on foresight, long-term thinking, and long-term planning, of course. So I will give the floor to Voke to talk about, Delta State and Nella. Over to you, Voke.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We hear you. Yes, we can hear you, Voke.
Okay, so my name is Voke Goroje. My name is Voke Goroje. I am from Reed Center in Delta State, Nigeria. I'm sorry that this place is rainy and I had to find a place where I can stay. So I'm just quickly going to go to what we have done in Delta State. We had a webinar first on expanding on the UN Pact for the Future, organized by Reed Center and some other partners. And then we had an exploratory dialogue on the desirability or otherwise of a directorate for the future. The meeting held and it was well attended by top government functionaries, funded by the Deputy Speaker of the Delta State Parliament, who gave us his express support and willingness to support any legislation that will culminate into the establishment of a directorate for the future. We had proposed that the directorate will be established under the auspices of the Ministry of Economic Planning, and the Commissioner of Economic Planning also gave a big support. So we are putting together an advocacy plan for us to bring other people like the governor and other members of the executive into understanding what we want and developing a framework on how the directorate will work. We are very hopeful that with all that we have seen and all the support we have gotten from both members of parliament and also from the executive in terms of the Ministry of Economic Planning, Higher Education, Youth, and others, we are confident that all things being equal, we should have a directorate for the future in Delta State. We hope to continue to give feedback on what we are doing, and Alimi has been very supportive. Alimi and Allen they've been very supportive, and they've brought out a lot of issues that we are dealing with. For us in Delta, we are very hopeful, and we want to blaze the trail to be the first state in Nigeria that will give serious effect to the UN Pact for the future. I don't know if my colleague Nella is around, she can speak more, but these are my thoughts and comments for now. Thank you so much, Alimi, for this opportunity, and thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you, Boke. I would like to give the floor to Nella to talk about some of the things that are happening and that are going to happen. For instance, today we had a webinar on foresight, long-term thinking, and long-term planning, of course. So, Nella, if you are there, quickly talk about that and the future plans that we have in Nigeria. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Alimi and okay. Yeah, thanks everyone. So I will just say that to add to what Alimi and Voki have said, the exploratory dialogue in Delta State was like a pilot, more or less, because Nigeria is a big country, and we have 36 states, and it's very diverse and dynamic. And I think the takeaway from the exploratory dialogue was that each jurisdiction within the country has its own specific nuances, and it's important that even though we are having this, we're beginning to see momentum at the national level, which is what Alimi was referring to. There was this was from the office of the Vice President today. There was a dialogue, a meeting, a webinar on long-term thinking and how we can institutionalize that, as well as even just looking at economic long-term plans. And that shows the direction the government is going in, and that they're looking at including, there's always been a level of strategic foresight and long-term thinking, but it's how to implement and institutionalize it. Because the reality is, even if the laws or the policies are there, the implementation side of things need to be married with that. And one takeaway from the Delta State dialogue was government involvement and how there is an understanding for institutional implementation as well as civic participation. Because a part of what we did in the Delta State dialogue was we engaged with the citizens, and we had like a futures participatory forum. This was like just a test to see where people were leaning in terms of the idea of having a futures a directive for the future. And we could see that the citizens want this. People are inclined to think of future generations as well as the younger generations who are alive today and will inherit what we leave behind. So I think long term, we're looking at more strategic stakeholder dialogue, both at the public sector and private sector, because we think those are the two pillars that need to build capacity, and there needs to also be a buy-in for us to drive futures and strategic foresight within Nigeria and Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much, Nella and Boke. So I will be having a kind of launching the Nigeria Coalition for Future Generations shortly. So we look forward to having Nigerians in the diaspora join us for this conversation. Thank you, Njeri, for this opportunity. Over to you. Bye.
Thank you, Alimi. Thank you, Voke. Thank you, Nella, for that exciting feedback. It sounds like you are indeed blazing the trail with your pilot initiatives. And Alimi, please do share more about the work that you're doing. And for anybody on the continent that wants to be part of the coalition in Nigeria, please do, send the invite and let's see how we can support you. If there's any way we can support you, please do also put it in the chat. Wonderful to hear about the work that you're doing there, especially navigating that complexity. I think lessons emerging from that will be very useful. I know that we are running a bit tight on time. We did start a bit after the hour. So let me quickly hand over to Jack to give a little bit of an update from the ImPACT Coalition's Secretariat's side. Thanks, Jack. Over to you.
Perfect. Oh, I'm so excited by the rich discussions we've had already, which is testament to the fact that we've run over slightly on our timings. But just to give a quick update from us at the Secretariat then. So really we are very keen to grow the membership of the ImPACT Coalition. You saw the figures on the slides earlier that we're well over now 500 in receipt of our communication and supporting our work and sharing their insights and perspectives and feedback with us. But please do encourage members in your communities, in your coalitions and networks to join. And as a coalition seeking to shine a spotlight on the good work of others, I really do encourage partners to look at other networks occupying this space as well, who bring in their own right amazing work and perspectives. The work of the School of International Futures and the Pledge and Pioneers Network, or the Network of Institutions and Leaders for Future Generations. Just 3 examples of others active in this space. And I know the colleagues on the call from those networks are also with us today. So please do share the access to the QR code, and then the website here on the bottom left. We've had a bit of a refresh since the last check-in, so you can share that website now with friends and colleagues and advocates who will be able to, through that website, navigate to the membership form as well. We have a WhatsApp community, which you are also welcome to join, to share insights between meetings, news, updates, activities, prompts, challenges, debate. It's all welcome. Jokes even. I welcome anything to put a smile on our faces during some of the tough times that we're facing. So please do join the WhatsApp community as well. And then these insight sessions, Erica and the European Commission are keen for you to join. Theirs on the 11th of July. And then on the 11th of August and the 6th of October, we will host capacity building sessions on future generations, opportunities for us to bring partners together to upskill each other on good practice in taking a long-term approach. So more about those dates and links will come in the follow-up of this meeting. And then just a final message to say that the next full membership meeting will take place on the 4th of September, which you'll be able to navigate to on that QR code there on the right. But of course, we'll follow up after today's call with the right links, etc., to join.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you for that. And thanks for sharing the date of our next meeting. Look forward to seeing you all there. And this is the portion of the agenda where we open up the floor. I note that we did scheduled for a close at the top of the hour. So just to note that, please feel free to carry on with your other obligations. But for those that wish to hang around a little bit and perhaps share, you're most welcome to do so. I think we'll take about 5 to 10 minutes, maybe just to check in with one another. And I can see that Dawia has her hand raised. Do you want to go ahead and get us started?
Sir, just a very quick remark for Jack. I think the WhatsApp is a thread where only the administrators can publish. So is it possible for you to open it for conversation? Thanks, Jack.
That was okay. I think, yes, he's noted in the chats, technical request well received by the WhatsApp admin. Thanks for that, Dawia, so we can get more interaction on the group. Anybody else wish to share or raise any questions, any aha moments that were triggered from today's membership check-ins? You're most welcome to take the floor, either use the chat or feel free to raise your hand and unmute yourself. It would be lovely to hear from yourselves.
Hi, sorry, I think I'm keeping a hand against the background here. I'm Lisa from the Wellbeing Economy Alliance. Thanks so much for all those updates today. We may not have time to get into this now, but I'd love to chat to any other members that are thinking about activities and communications and advocacy around the anniversary of the declaration in September. That's something that our country hubs have been speaking actively about, and we want to try and coordinate to apply some pressure to governments to pay attention to the declaration and sort of use the anniversary in September as a hook for that. So if any other organisations are thinking around that, perhaps we could coordinate in some way, really shining a spotlight on 1 year anniversary.
Thanks, Lisa. Do you want to maybe share your contact details in the chat for anyone that wants to pick that up with you? Wonderful. And I love that on this call, there have been quite a few calls to collaborate, to connect, to support one another. I think this is really speaking to the purpose and the focus of this coalition. Any other inputs, insights, contributions? It seems we are suitably inspired from the agenda inputs that we had and from the updates we received, both in terms of the multilateral space and the different regional activities from Denmark to the EU and the Delta region in Nigeria. Let me then bring the call to a close with excitement for the next time we will connect. And I do hope that in the in-between, there'll be some follow-up on some of the conversation points and calls to action that were shared today. And yes, looking forward to hearing how the initiatives that we're all working on have developed later on in the year. And of course, we are also beginning to orient ourselves towards these multilateral spaces where we can begin to bring our work to a larger audience, build that critical mass for impact. So thank you, everyone, for your good work, your commitment, and for your presence today. Sending you off with good wishes and looking forward to the next time we can connect. Colleagues, I think that's a close to the meeting today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.